Welcome to the Tools in Action session on the GRI and the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm here with Pietro Bertazzi from the GRI. Welcome, Pietro. We're delighted to have you on the session. Maybe we should just start by giving the audience a bit of an idea of your role with the GRI and the larger role that the GRI has played in the run-up to the Sustainable Development Goals and the business role of the GRI in the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. This is Pietro Bertazzi. I'm the Deputy Director of Policy and Global Affairs at GRI. I've been particularly involved with GRI work for the past 7 years on the topic of policy at national and global level. I've been particularly involved in the negotiations of the Rio+20 conference, as well as the process that conducted to the adoption in September 2015 of the Sustainable Development Goals. At GRI, we really see our role as the bridge between the businesses and the governments. So to say, we've been helping since the negotiations of the SDGs, and now in the implementation phase, we've been helping to bridge between the governmental adopted Sustainable Development Goals and the practice of many companies around the world that are taking action on sustainable development and reporting on their sustainability impact.
Why do you feel that business is a particularly important stakeholder in the quest to achieve sustainable development and in achieving these sustainable development goals?
Private sector is crucial in the achievement of sustainable development because of the development angle. If we want to achieve development, we need the force that the private sector puts out there in order to improve, to create jobs, to create conditions for people to fulfill their objectives. In a way, the private sector is particularly important in the development in the SDGs because of the driving force that can play. We've seen a tremendous uptake of the SDGs by businesses, and compared to the past conferences, even looking at only a few years back at the Rio+20 conference, the engagement of the private sector on the SDGs has been much more strong than any time before. Of course, it's not only about the private sector. The SDGs agenda and the Sustainable Development Agenda that the SDGs are now defining until 2030 is so ambitious that cannot be achieved without joint efforts of all actors in society. So while we stress the role of the private sector on sustainable development, it is equally important that other stakeholders, other constituencies, from civil society, trade unions, governments, citizens, are equally involved in this very ambitious agenda. We cannot basically make it if not with a joint effort.
Well, the GRI is a multi-stakeholder initiative. I think one of your most prolific activities in this regard has been the development of initiatives and of tools that support businesses in engaging with the SDGs. Could you give us an overview of what those activities have been since the post-2015 agenda started?
Yeah, absolutely. And the core business of GRI is indeed the development of the GRI standards, which are the most widely used sustainability reporting standards in the world. Of course, those are about sustainable development. The GRI standards are really about topics which fall under the umbrella of sustainable development, and thousands of companies are using them to disclose, to report, and to assess impacts on sustainable development. Already in the run-up to the adoption of the SDGs, GRI has been working with the ambition of helping companies to navigate the SDGs, to understand the SDGs, to play a role, to contribute to the implementation of the SDGs. So what have we done in that sense? First of all, we've been bridging ideas, wealth of innovation that the private sector could bring into the process that led to the adoption of the SDGs. Actually, one target among the 169 targets of the SDGs is namely about sustainability reporting, is the target 12.6, where governments agreed to encourage companies to integrate sustainability information into their reporting cycle. In that sense, we created a so-called live tracker, which is a work map that looks at that tracks the implementation of the target 12.6. It has been developed by GRI and TCS, Tata Consultancy Service, and it's available on the GRI database. Just skimming with the mouse on the different countries, you can actually see how many companies in that specific country are reporting on their sustainability, and you can see the evolution from year to year. We started with a baseline in 2015, and you can see, for each year, now you can see 2015, 16, and the initial data that we have about 2017. But you will see it even in the next following years, what is the progress done? So we can really assess whether there is a progress on the target 12.6. This was one initiative that we launched already at Summit in September 2015 when the SDGs were adopted. Mm-hmm. But another very important one has been the SDG Compass. This was actually a partnership that was developed in collaboration with UN Global Compact, World Business Council on Sustainable Development, and GRI. The main idea was to provide companies with a compass, to understand the SDGs, to integrate the SDGs into their own operations, and to take action and contribute somehow to SDGs. And it has been a fantastic journey. At the moment, I think that the SDG Compass has been translated to 10 different languages, and this has been just up to the interest of different stakeholders in different countries to have it translated in their own language.
Are there already first experiences about companies using the SDG Compass? What do you feel are the main benefits that users may derive from this tool?
Yeah, we've been, overwhelmed by, positive feedback. And of course, this is not a tool that is used step by step by the companies as a separate tool. But of course, it's a guidance that has been offered to companies to understand the SDGs, define their own priorities, setting their own goals, integrating this into their operations, and report and communicating. So in a way, it is part of the wealth of information and publications that companies that take sustainability seriously have been consulting to do basically a better job. So we've been informed about the uptake of this publication by many companies around the world. We've been invited to make presentations literally in every corner of the world. And in a way, we felt that it was a publication that was helping companies to better understand the SDGs. But, behind the publication, there are, of course, other tools and resources. In particular, on the sdgcompass.org, you will be able to find the publication itself, but as well as inventory of available business indicators that companies can use. And of course, we will be looking at different set of standards. We'll be looking at the CDP, access to medicine, but of course, GRI indicators as well, but as well as other tools such as the impact assessment tools. So indeed, the SDG Compass is, in a way, a platform for companies how to navigate the SDGs and which are the tools that can actually help them to take action on the SDGs.
Now the GRI standards, and before them also the G4 guidelines, as well as the SDG Compass, focus on the question of corporate impacts front and center. This has not been the case in previous versions of these standards. What is the relevance of really focusing on impact in those newer tools and guidelines?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. And this is a pretty hot topic for us. The concept of input has always been on the GRI guidelines and now the standards. But you're right, we are getting much more focused on the word impacts, because we really feel that the input refers to what is the effect of the organization has on the economy, on the environment, on the society, that can either indicate a positive or a negative contribution. So in a way, the focus really looks at what is the bottom line, what is really happening. And of course, the impact can be direct and indirect. We, in our standards, we have the concept of materiality at the center of the standards. And this was already, before in G4 and in the previous version of the guidelines and standards. But now the strong focus is really on those impacts that are important. So they can happen within the boundaries of the company, they can happen in the supply chain, but wherever there is a sustainability impact, that impact needs to be addressed and disclosed in the sustainability reporting.
So this really raises the bar for a lot of companies, I think, in terms of the complexities that have to be addressed. At the same time, this idea of identifying material impacts is something that narrows the scope again a little bit. How did this aspect of materiality enter the GRI standards, and how do companies figure out what is material?
Yeah, materiality has been as well, in the previous editions of the GRI guidelines and now standards. In a way, we look at the materiality as the key of the elements that the report should cover. And companies should do a materiality assessment, understanding what are the sustainability impacts, and they should do that taking in consideration internal and external stakeholders, so that the company has a full picture of what is even the perception of the sustainability impacts of the company by other stakeholders that are, from NGOs to internal, staff or employees, as well as, local authorities and policymakers.
This notion of impact is something that we're dealing with a lot in the course of this virtual conference, so getting your take on this is very useful. Looking beyond your current activities, the Life Tracker and the SDG Compass, what is the GRI currently? What are you currently working on for supporting businesses further engage with the SDGs now that they're actually in force and happening?
Yeah, we realized during the rollout of the work that we've been doing in the SDG Compass that the mapping that we did of the available business indicators against the SDGs and targets was very good as a starting point, but was not really helping companies to disclose the actual contribution done on that specific goal or target. We realized that there was a lack of common understanding of what the different SDGs really meant to businesses. Therefore, in September 2016, GRI and UN Global Compact entered in a new partnership, and we've been looking namely on the reporting on the SDGs. We try to understand for each goal and target what was the expected business contribution and impact to those targets and SDGs. But of course, we would have never been able to do this alone. So we had to create a multi-stakeholder advisory committee that is composed of more than 60 people and organizations, including governments, international organizations, civil society organizations, business associations, investors, data users, and as well statistical offices. And the ambition is indeed to make a bit more straightforward SDG reporting, identifying relevant indicators. We have the ambition to make it easier to understand, and therefore we are developing guidance for business practitioners. We're looking to make it easier for companies to execute, and therefore we're looking at the possibility of better alignment of the GRI standards and the UN Global Compact Communication on Progress. And the last ambition that we have, which is a very big ambition indeed, is about making data accessible to users. Therefore, we're looking at mining and aggregating data so that we can show what is the private sector contribution to the SDGs.
Okay, with making data accessible to users, do you mean businesses primarily, or is this in a larger context?
It is indeed in a larger context. The business will generate the data because we're looking at corporate reporting on the SDGs, of course, but we want this data to be used. So what is the way to mine the data from the PDFs? Because at the moment we live a bit in that kind of trap. Businesses will issue their sustainability report. The data will be in the PDFs, but how can we mine the data and to make them accessible to the different stakeholders that want to assess what is private sector contribution to the SDGs? And I'm thinking as one of the primary audience could indeed be the governments. The governments every year will go through national voluntary reviews at the level political forum in New York, and it will be great for them to be able to make an assessment about what are the companies under their jurisdiction contributing to the SDGs.
So this is also about actually including business into the overall monitoring and evaluation of progress on the SDGs. Next to the availability of data, I think this has been an ongoing point of contention with a lot of stakeholders and much debated in the SDG process. Do you feel that sustainability disclosures are actually the way to integrate businesses in the overall monitoring and evaluation of the SDGs, or do you think there should also be other efforts made to better show the contribution of business?
I really believe that we are in a phase, at the UN, we're pretty much in a phase of understanding how to make sustainable development data available. There are huge gaps. Some of those gaps can actually be closed, taking in consideration the private sector generated data. And this is a conversation that we're having with the UN, as well as with the national statistical offices around the world. But yes, the short answer to your question is yes. In order to get the private sector on board in the follow-up and review, we need to look at sustainability reporting and the data that is generated by sustainability reporting.
Okay, that's a very clear position. That's great. One thing that I think the GRI has been very active on in this regard is the move towards standardizing information, disclosures on the corporate contribution to sustainability. Do you think that standardization is at a point where we're starting to actually see comparable information that can go into those SDG monitoring processes, or do you feel there's more to be done?
We have already, we have a good starting point. When we mapped the GRI indicators and disclosures against the SDGs, we identified that we had an okay coverage. But at this new partnership that I mentioned with UN Global Compact, reporting on SDGs action platform, has the ambition of identifying which are the gaps in business disclosures, in business indicators that we need to track business contribution to the SDGs. Therefore, at the end of this process, especially the preliminary analysis on business disclosures that will be presented at the High-Level Political Forum 2017 in July in New York, we will identify which are the gaps, because not for every SDG and target which are relevant for businesses, we will have an available indicator that is exactly measuring the contribution to that specific goal and target. Therefore, we will do this map of gaps. It's a gap analysis, and this project will result in recommendation to the GRI standard setting body to develop indicators and disclosures to fill those gaps. Therefore, we have a good starting point, but there is still more work to do to have a full coverage of the SDGs for business reporting.
Can you already provide a sneak peek, a feeling for where major gaps might be identified?
I'm unfortunately not in a position to share with you anything at the moment. We're going through check with our multi-stakeholder advisory committee. Therefore, I'm not really able to share with you much. But as a just gut feeling, let's put it that way, goal number 10 on inequalities might be among those that need a bit more work. And this is not necessarily because we don't have indicators on inequalities, but mainly because there are so many synergies with other SDGs that we need to clarify what is exactly the expected business contribution and impact on inequality, goal 10.
All right, so there's actually two sides to the story. On the one hand, gaps in disclosures on topics that might not have been at the forefront of sustainability reporting up to now, but also a certain need to clarify expectations towards business in this regard from other stakeholders towards business. When will you be publishing this? I'm sure our audience would like to know.
Yeah, knock on wood. By July 2017, we will have the preliminary analysis presented at the A-Level Political Forum in New York. So yeah, stay tuned. It will be coming pretty soon. It's only a couple of months.
Okay, great. So that is actually coming up relatively soon. Maybe coming back to the question of partnerships. You've already mentioned two partnerships that you're working with. I think in the whole SDG debate, partnerships and partnerships with the private sector are a topic that is front and center of the discussion. How does the GRI actually promote partnering with the private sector in the SDGs? Is that something where you can be a facilitator, maybe where you're part to this kind of partnerships already?
Yeah, it's a bit awkward for me to answer to this question because GRI itself is a partnership. We were actually created on the wave after the Earth Summit in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. So in a way we see ourselves as a partnership, as a multi-stakeholder partnership that has been successfully working towards getting a common understanding about what companies should report on sustainable development. So in this new SDGs, of course, we've been forming partnership with other organizations to advance the agenda. We don't necessarily enter in partnership on some specific topics, but we will keep our work on the overarching business role in sustainable development and business reporting in sustainable development. And that's how this partnership with the Young Global Compact came up.
All right, so it's actually part of your DNA. You also the role of innovation of the private sector in achieving the SDGs. How do you think business and innovation will be important to the SDGs? Could you make this a little bit more concrete? Maybe give us a couple of examples.
Well, it's not really up to me or to GRI to identify which are the areas of business innovation. We've been experiencing that some of the challenges that we had on sustainable development have been indeed addressed by new ideas and the new way of working from the businesses. That is a bit of a new element. If you look back at the MDGs, for example, mostly this was an agenda for governments. And the private sector was there looking, observing, but it was not that much engagement with the private sector. Now the SDGs lay out a totally different agenda, which is really comprehensive, really universal, and the ambitions of leaving no one behind can only, be fulfilled with a strong role of the private sector coming up with indeed, new ideas, new projects, and why not, new business and new markets, because indeed the SDGs are opening space for companies to present new business solutions.
Is it important in this context that there is a specific business case for the SDGs, or do you feel there are other motivations that might induce businesses to get involved with the SDGs and possibly with the SDG disclosures?
You will, if you will ask this question to companies, you will get different answers per each company you will ask the question. I believe that the drivers for companies to engage on the SDGs are very different, and sometimes, you can cluster them, but it will be really depending on what is the DNA of the company. Some companies can be more driven by the overall vision and ambition to contributing to the overall agenda, overall ambition that the governments of the world have been setting for the world itself. So it's a legitimacy to operate. Other companies might have more interest in building trust with their stakeholders. So it's a risk management tool. SDGs represent that common language and shared purpose that companies can use the SDGs to interact with their own stakeholders and to anticipate what are the needs of stakeholders. Other companies might look at the SDGs as a way to somehow explore new markets. Depending on the implementation of the SDGs, there might be new policies put in place, and there might be changes in the policy environment where companies work, and therefore this will have a huge impact on the business itself. So the SDGs can already give an indication to the companies on which direction the market will go.
And looking at all of these different motivations, I mean, you're at the forefront of working on the reporting aspects of this. For a company that's mainly interested in risk management or that's mainly interested in making strategic decisions under consideration of sustainability aspects, reporting might not be the most obvious or the most important way to go about it. What do you feel is the specific role of reporting and disclosures in demonstrating the business contribution to the SDGs?
It would be difficult to make any assessment of what businesses are contributing to the SDGs if you don't have the moment of collecting the data and looking at the bottom line. Therefore, the reporting is, of course, not the only way, but it's a means to an end. Reporting is the way that we can understand what companies have been doing on sustainable development and on the SDGs, which is hopefully not the only thing that the companies will do, but it will report on projects, on initiatives, on policies that it will have in place to enhance and to contribute to the SDGs.
And I think the reporting, the disclosures, also this move towards standardization that you've been an essential part of has made sustainability reporting extremely sophisticated. It has really brought it to a much more substantial level than, and I would expect you to agree with me, than when the first GRI guidelines came out. So there's been a lot of evolution and development in that area. Is there a risk that some companies are being left behind with looking at new SDG disclosures, ever more advanced GRI standards that are coming up? Is there anything that you are doing or that can be done to make sure that indeed nobody is left behind?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for this question, because this is something that we've been asking ourselves at GRI, and despite the perception that GRI standards are really used by larger companies, we have quite a good constituency, a good group of small and medium enterprises that are already using the GRI standards to disclose their sustainability information. Of course, there are a lot of SMEs out there which are not reporting at the moment, but that's why GRI is actually committed to develop a pilot program for SMEs reporting. We're working on it right now. We are having soon a pilot to be launched in 6 countries, and we will be involving, SMEs and activating SMEs on reporting on sustainable development. Of course, given that the ambition that we have now is to integrate the SDGs even more into the GRI standards, we will have small and medium enterprises that will be somehow involved more and reporting more on SDGs as well. So the ambition of leaving no one behind for us goes mostly through the small and medium enterprises, and we're taking action on that.
The GRI, you personally maybe as well, will stay involved in the SDG implementation over the coming years. What would be your idea of a success scenario? So best case, by 2030, what would you say would make you feel that, yes, you've really achieved your ambition, you've made your contribution as GRI?
I really wish that before 2030, we will have a system in place where we can have data disclosed by the companies around the world, either large companies and small and medium enterprises. We will have this data and we will be able to aggregate this data and show to the governments what is the contribution of the companies under their jurisdiction to the SDGs. Okay,
that's an ambitious agenda. How far ahead are you on this journey? Well, on a scale from 1 to 10?
From 1 to 10, I would say we're a good 5. I would say we are halfway. We've been identifying possible partnerships because you can imagine that this agenda is not only for us. We are experts on corporate reporting, but we're not experts in macro level indicators. So this is why we're engaging with national statistical offices and with data agency, data organizations to discuss with them what are the possibilities for aggregating the data. And as you can imagine, the methodological issues are many there. But we have somehow the vision pretty clear. So we are already starting with a couple of pilots, which are very small, but are identifying already which are the methodological challenges that we have and how we can overcome those, and how the data that we issue will be good enough for the national statistical offices to take them in consideration.
Well, we obviously wish you all the best for achieving this agenda, and we'll be following these developments even though the Global Value Project as such is ending. We'll be making available all the links and the websites of the information you provided to the audience as well. And obviously there are the sessions in the program of our final conference that address many of the issues that we just discussed. I hope we'll hear some of the participants again in a couple of the other sessions. And yes, I just would like to thank you for your time, for sharing your vision and your activities with us, Pietro.
Thank you so much for the invite.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.